everybody, and welcome to the seventh episode of the 6 Million Mile Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Crackerbox Jimmy.
And I am your other co-host, Trucker Toby. Welcome to the 6 Million Mile Show. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're hearing and you like the show, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and ring that little notification bell so you get notified every time we drop a new episode.
So if you got any good road stories, I that's something I miss about being out on the road, is getting to hear stories of what's going on with the drivers. You got anything good for us this week, Toby?
Actually, I got something that happened to me today, man, and it rings true about how we always talk about the nostalgia and how truck stops have changed and that we're losing things. So today, I'm in the middle of a conversation with my wife on the cell phone, and all of a sudden, my cell phone goes, just cuts out. Nothing. My phone had been shut off out of nowhere. Now, my bill's not due till Friday, which is the weird part. I had just pulled out of a Love's truck stop, or a racetrack truck stop in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, there's a Pilot not too far up the road. So I pull into this Pilot. And of course, what do? You got to call Verizon, right? So I swing into this Pilot and I go looking for a dinosaur. I go looking for a payphone. And guess what? There is no payphone. Now, they did let me use the phone at the counter and I got everything handled. It was a mistake, not a problem. But just think about it. If they had a phone room like we used to have in the old days, it wouldn't have been a problem. I could have dialed, because it says, hey, to reestablish your service, please dial 1-800 blah, 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 blah. How am I supposed to do that from a phone that's cut off?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got it worked out. But yeah,
I got it worked out. But I mean, they took the phone room away from us. And that phone room, I get that everybody's got a cell phone now, but a payphone still could, there could be a lot of uses out of a payphone still these days. I don't even think they make them anymore. So there's your road story for the week, man. It happened to me literally this morning.
Yeah, having those old amenities, having some kind of backup system still in the truck stop would be a really good thing to have. Having at least a couple of payphones available for drivers. So if you get into that situation, you cannot be the first person to have had that kind of a problem and get hung up going, okay, now what? There's no other recourse. Yeah. That would be a good thing to have. At least a couple of functional payphones in the truck stop for people. That would be all right.
Oh, yeah. But there's your story for the road this week.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Toby. Yeah.
Maybe next time I'll tell you about the flying midgets.
I think everybody wants to hear about the flying midgets, but yeah, we'll do that one next time.
You got it. Flying midgets on point. You got it.
Okay. All right. So, but today we have a special guest with us for the show. A young lady by the name of Rue, who is a tanker driver, a hazmat tanker driver. Yeah, tell me. I know. I'm really, really impressed by her and what she has to say.
You know what? I was too. She had a lot of good things to say. Just the surprising thing for me is a female is not so uncommon in this industry. Now, it's a male-dominated industry, but the female that drives tanker is even rarer. And a female that drives tanker and hauls exclusively hazmat, I gotta hear this episode.
Yeah, me too. So everybody, why don't stay tuned? We'll get right into that episode right here. Well, hello, Rue. Welcome to the 6 Million Mile Show. Good to have you on here. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you got into trucking? I know you said you wanted to do it since you were young. I can totally relate to that. That's what I wanted to do when I was 6 years old. That's all I wanted to do.
Well, that's pretty impressive knowing at 6 years old. I don't think I quite started out that young, knowing, if you will, right? The teenage years, and I did mention that I've always had a degree of an agricultural background, so that kind of played a little bit of a role, I think. But then, life gets in the way, and you somehow waste away in a cubicle for a decade, contemplating what you're doing with your life. But I had kids then, and it was nice for when they were little, because you can't do this really and still raise a family, I don't think. I mean, there are people that have done it, but it wasn't really in the cards for me, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What kind of ag background do you have? Did you grow up on a farm? I've done a lot of ag trucking, and I tell you what, that is some of the hardest work that I have ever done. Some of the scariest work that I've ever done. The things that you have to handle, some of the equipment that you have to deal with. Not all, farm trucks are some of the most abused pieces of equipment, I think, on this planet. So how did you grow up on a farm?
Yep, I think we've always had at least pigs and chickens and the minimum. There were times that we had just the farm outside, really just homesteading scenario. But then right after the trucking school, everything around local was agricultural. And like you better be checking the oil. You better be looking at the tires because that truck might have sat in the weeds for the last 20 years and you were the first one to get into it. So, but it definitely was the hard part, midnights, 1 o'clocks. And like we were just talking earlier, I was really excited about the new truck having super headlights.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's midnight, you're looking for a driveway that is maybe 3 or 4 feet wide and you've never been there, it really is important to have it illuminated. So yeah, it's a challenge. I've ran always was overloaded. So I think the one time like 130,000, and you're rated for 80. and my boss is like, yeah, just go slow and the back roads to take. Well, I guess that's some good advice. Put the orange triangle, you're good to go. Okie dokie. But we always make it, you always seem to find a way to make it happen because it has to. I mean, the cows get fed. I did a lot of getting rid of the liquid manure for it. So that's why my tanker experience was already there for the couple of years that I've been trucking.
So what got you into doing the hazmat stuff? That's I got to tell you, I am super impressed with that. Like some of the ag trucking that I did, we hauled anhydrous ammonia, and that stuff is terrifying. They had stickers on everywhere we had to stand around the trailer, stickers that said 15 seconds to death, just so you understood how close you were to dying at any particular moment. That and a lot of explosive fertilizers and just some nasty things. And, I didn't really think about it an awful lot before I got into hauling that stuff. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll haul hazmat. I don't care. And then it's like, holy cow. One thing that I remember reading the packet of information that came with all the hazmat loads of what to do in case of an emergency. And we were hauling in Michigan, double bottom dump trailers mounded up with pelletized ammonium nitrate. And the instructions on that, it said, if in case of a vehicle fire, immediately evacuate a half-mile radius from the truck, because that's the size of the hole that you're going to put in the ground. If that thing blew up, you were just going to level stuff for a long ways. Like, no, maybe this isn't such a good idea. What made you decide that hazmat's the way to go?
I don't know if there was that's a really good story you're telling. Oh my goodness, for sure. So that puts everything into perspective. Yeah, just going to the tractor trailer school, the endorsements were encouraged and I'm like, well, this one looks good, So I guess I didn't put a lot of pre-thought into it. And then for being on the agriculture side, I just had it. And all New York State wants is to make sure you just keep paying for it. So eventually, and then COVID came around and I stayed home with my girls for a little bit. And once I got back into it, I said, why do you have this endorsement if you're not using it? And was able to find a really great company. They have been just top notch. It is a challenge going from being home every night to mostly a week out at a time. But the hazmat, and like you mentioned, it's definitely a different animal. Now, the agriculture side, as you're talking to, that's, not a lot of OSHA approved things going on. You have a lot of potential to get hurt. Now, the hazmat side, I feel everything is so regimented. I mean, anything you touch, there's a book that's like, as you mentioned, this thick, this is the valve that needs to be pulled, and then you do this, and then you check on this. And it's all so rigid, and it just, as you get your routine down, it really actually becomes second nature. It becomes pretty safe. But just like anything in the trucking industry, if you're getting comfortable, you are potentially going to be dangerous. So always double, triple check.
I've said that for years. If you get, they statistics show that most accidents occur with drivers with 2 years experience or less, or 10 years or more, because we get complacent out here. I got rid of my hazmat because you said, what's the use of having the endorsement if I'm not going to use it? That's exactly why I got rid of it. Never used it. So I didn't haul enough. I hauled 2 hazmat loads a year driving the dry van. So I just got rid of mine. But I cannot, 15 seconds to death, really?
Yeah. 15 seconds to death. Well, it's anhydrous ammonia. And when you make a contact, when that touches skin, it draws all of the liquid out of your skin. So if you happen to inhale any ammonia vapor, well, you think about it, household ammonia, how rough that is on it to smell. That's 5% ammonia in water. Excuse me. And we were hauling 99.9 some percent pure compressed ammonia gas. And if you happen to breathe that in, it just sucks all of the liquid out of your lungs, and you can't breathe. It's terrifying stuff. But it paid really well.
I'll bet it did. But no, I'm sorry. I will just not. And let's say we did. How's that? You know what? Nope, never done that. Not gonna do it. Ain't nope, no. That is on the bottom. That is not even on the bucket list, brother. Nope, not happening.
You were telling me about some of the things that you haul on a regular basis. I already said it, but I'll say it again. Man, am I impressed with your willingness to do that. The sulfuric acid and formaldehyde and all those kinds of things. That's really, really burly, as they say out here in California.
Now, okay, Rue, is it tanker or do you haul a dry van?
Yep, I do the tanker side of it. The dry van,
that's what I thought.
Waste product, but the tanker takes it and it's going to be used, and then whatever comes later and however they get rid of it. Some companies are different. Every time it depends on the customer how they choose to tote it, or you can put it in all sorts of other options. But yeah, that sounds like physical manual labor, and I don't really usually do that. So
Nope.
Do you go
hose.
I lost you there for just a second. What did the last thing you said? What was that?
Oh, I would that I wasn't really into manual labor, but I can sling hoses. So those aren't.
Do they have you on like a regular route? Do you go to the same customers all the time, or are you having to deal with new folks on a constant basis?
It's a little of both for sure. I think I'll go, weekly to one place for a month or two, and then I won't see them for 3 or 4 or 6 months at a time. So it's how the dice lands.
Are they surprised when a young woman pulls up pulling the tanker with the hazmat material the first time they meet you? Do you get interesting reactions from shippers and receivers?
Generally, there's actually another woman pretty comparable in size to me that's already been through the hazmat, and she works here as well. But yeah, I get that pretty routine there. Or even at the truck stops, they're like, "You drive this?" And I've gotten kind of snarky. I'm like, "No, I just teleport."
There you go. You're learning.
Yeah, after you get a couple years under your belt, you're like, yeah, I know how this whole thing works.
So what's it like being out on the road? I remember you got your CDL right about the time that I got out of the business. I started trucking in 82.
82, you said.
Yeah, I had to do the math in my head. That's the start of a lot of problems. But I started trucking in 82. And there were a few women on the road. You'd see them here and there, but not at all like you know, the number of women that have gotten into the industry now. What's it like to be a young woman out on the road dealing with the public and the other drivers and whatnot? How's your experience been?
Right. Well, like you can mention, I mean, just even being off the couple years that you have or starting so much longer ago, a lot's changed. I believe the statistic is that there's 18% of Americans have a CDL, and of that, only like 3% is women.
Wow.
So I thought that was unique. It may have changed. I think that was a 2022 statistic, if I recall reading. But I'm also kind of an anomaly on top of that because I really don't have to go to the truck stops routinely. Most of my shippers and customers, I can stay on site there. I can stay on site at the yard pretty routinely. But it's got its own challenges. I like to try to be pretty mindful of my surroundings, which anyone should be anyways, especially in this day and age. I generally try to stay closer to the lamp posts and where there's really good lighting if I can help it. You know, another side note is I do have some martial arts background, so I guess I don't worry as much as someone probably should have if it was like my kids were with me or something of that nature. So.
Oh, okay. I've got daughters, and I won't bring them out here with me. And I've been driving over 20 years, and I have my oldest daughter's 28 now, and she's never been in the truck. I have 3 younger daughters, well, stepdaughter, 2 stepdaughters, and then 2 younger girls. And my girls will never. I don't trust drivers. I don't trust drivers. And maybe that's a bad thing, but I just, it's always, you know, you hear some of the stuff that goes on the radio, and statistically, it takes 7 seconds to steal a child. No, not one of my girls.
I took mine. I took my daughter out with me all the time. We like went from Michigan down to Atlanta, all over the place. Cab over Pete. Had a cab
But that
over
was a
Pete.
different generation.
That was
though,
a different
Jim.
time. That was
Yeah,
a
it was a
different
different time.
They had this big old cab over Pete with a double wide sleeper on it. And she'd ride with me for like 2 or 3 weeks in the summertime. And we'd come back home, and it would take me like a month and a half to quit laying on Barbie shoes. They're pokey little Barbie high heels, because she'd sit back there in the bunk. You know, she was little. She was like 7 or 8, and she'd bring an armload of Barbie stuff and throw it in the bunk and just sit back there and have a great old time. And, you know, and I always find them and pick them up out of the mattress, or they'd fall down in a crack. And like, here's another 20 of your shoes that you're missing. But we had a great time.
My boys have been out, but, you know, never my girls. I again, you know, it's a different time. It's a different era out here. And drivers, I mean, true story. I was at a Petro truck stop in Ohio, and a driver come across the radio asking, he says, "Hey, I'll give somebody $500 just to spend an hour with their daughter." I mean, that's the kind of stuff that goes on out here nowadays. And I bet, you know, so no, I get, you know, where you're coming from. That's a different era. But, and by the way, we did find the driver.
Okay. Good.
We did find the driver. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, good. Rue, I know you had told me that you had taken your daughters out when you were not running hazmat. How'd they like it? Are either of those two going to be truckers when they get big?
I think we discourage that a little bit, I'm afraid to say. And they have their own ideas too. But yeah, we like the agriculture. It was fun with Mom for the first 3 rounds, going around opening the field of the corn. And then I wouldn't see them anyways. I'm like, the whole point was to see them during the day, but they would rather go in the chopper, and they'd rather go push bunk in the tractors. I'm like, what the heck? You know, I don't see you for 20-hour days practically anyways. And the whole point was to see them during the summers, but that's okay. They're ducks to water, man. These kids are, but definitely to the point, you know, somebody came over the radio and I was at a truck stop, that'd be a problem for me too.
But you were talking about being out in the field. Were you out like for corn harvest and whatnot, getting loaded up with the grain buggies and all that?
Oh yeah, there was many an hour and days and very late nights doing that. Corn, and you'd chop the hay. I did a lot of vegetables too, so like cabbage and beets and just whatever produce was in season. And then we did a lot of the liquid cow manure. And then so when it was winter and not busy for farming, we would haul bulk salt.
Mhm.
So that was its own animal too.
Yeah,
Going to
I did that out in I hauled bulk salt out in New York, and oh, it was the year that I did that, there was quite a bit of snow, and there was a short supply of salt, so there was a special waiver on log books and hours, and we just ran and ran and ran, hauled bulk salt like 20 hours a day, and you just pull into the scale house or the roadside checks, and I got salt, and they just, okay, go. That was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, but man, was that a lot of work. And I remember being out in the field for corn harvest, that as soon as the dew was off the stalks, off the cob, they'd get out there with that combine. And if the dew didn't set back out there, you could be out there 24, 26 hours, just loading corn, get it to the dryer, come right back to the field, load corn. We had 6,000 acres of corn to harvest. Oh, and like 5 of us driving the trucks.
No.
That was the hardest job I've ever had.
2
And
words for you.
Yes.
No.
No, it's an experience. I tell you what, there's nothing like driving a truck through the middle of a cornfield and trying to steer in the mud, because like we'd get on these ridge lines in between the fields, and you've got to make these corners, and if you don't make the corner, you're going off into the field somewhere where you're just screwed, and the trucks won't turn because of the mud, and you're like Rue said, up to 120, 130,000 pounds sometimes with these things. Yeah, that's a lot of weight. That's an awful lot of weight.
Do I look like a truck driver? Do I look like a truck driver that misread his GPS? If I wind up out in a cornfield, it's because I made a wrong turn. No.
I said, we know who you drive for if you end up like that.
I started to say the name and then changed my mind. This is a family show.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So
I'm so glad you're watching your language today, Crackerbox. It's horrible.
So Rue, you said that the truck that you're in right now was your first automatic transmission. What did you find different? Other than the fact that there's not a stick that you got to reach out. What did you, as a new driver, when you switched into that automatic, what did you find was excessively different?
Okay. I think there was definitely a stigma attached to it, just because I was so used to it, and like the work we did in the fields, in the mud, as you're mentioning, always in the snow for the salt. There was a stigma attached to it. Anyone I talked to, they just said it was the worst thing on the planet. They're never going to change. And, Mr. Cranky Pants has been driving 30 years and he's never going to drive automatic. And so I had, this already made up in my mind, but then a week in, 2 weeks in, I'm like, wait a minute, this is all right. I feel a little ego deflated because I'm not shifting. But other than that, and, everything they talked about, they're horrible. You're going to get whiplash and this, but these newer aids, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
I have a question about that. One of the things I found, and this goes back to you guys talk about being out in the fields with the mud and stuff like that. One of the things I found, I drive an automatic and I drove a manual for almost 16 years. You can't shift as fast. The manual or the automatic can't shift as fast as the manual. And a lot of times when you get like stuck, in mud or whatever, how does that affect you guys, like in the fields where it's real muddy or snow bogged or just wet? I mean, does that work against you at all?
Yeah, I think you would have a difficult time. I think you need that extra. Everything's really more in your control. As you're saying, you have to take a little bit more time with the slosh in the back too. If you're liquid, It does have kind of a manual mode, and you need to use that if you're heading up a hill. I mean, the truck can't tell what it's doing other than what the computer's telling it, but I can see further ahead that I need to downshift a couple times for it or up.
So it does. Okay. I kind of thought it would, because I mean, you cannot shift a manual, or excuse me, scratch that, reverse it. An automatic can't shift as fast as I can in a manual. And obviously you too, if you drove in, you too, Crackerbox. Anybody that knows what has driven a manual knows what I'm talking about. You can shift faster in a manual than this automatic can. And I just figured traction wise, it might affect you guys, or, when you're rolling, you don't get bogged down. So you saying what you're saying makes sense. There's an adjustment there as far as the way the truck drives, but the amenities, I don't know, man. I don't have a problem driving in like Cincinnati traffic without a stick. That doesn't bother me too much.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Now the first automatic that I drove, the first thing that I noticed about it that was kind of problematic was backing up, trying to, I always prided myself at being able to just tap the dock. If I'm backing with dry van, just lightly tap the dock and, not banging into it very hard. That was always something that I just took as a matter of pride. The first dock I hit with an automatic, the guy come out and said, "What are you trying to do? You trying to move my building?" Because I'm feathering the thing into the dock and it just quit moving. And I got to a low enough speed where the transmission just kicked it into neutral, and I goosed the throttle a little bit, and there was no in between. It was just, okay, we're backing up. Boom. Right. Yeah. Just smacked that building hard. And so doing that, those kinds of oddball shifting things, you made a point, Rue, about the slosh in the tank. Do you, so your tankers, are they baffled at all? And how do you account for that wave in that tank if there's, with the automatic, because I always had to time the shifting with where the wave was inside the trailer. How does the automatic screw you up sometimes like that?
I think they're same thing, maybe thinking ahead a little bit further on it. And if we have a stale light, you kind of are already, as you should do anyway, is protecting the brake and maybe thinking that it's going to change on you at any minute, what have you. It's not awful. I mean, I have gotten wrecked a couple times, the whiplash. It's not perfect. Same as the automatics to the farm side. You're not going to put these autonomous trucks, on Donner Pass. So it's kind of a pro and a con situation, right? So
quick observation and a funny story, if you don't mind.
Go.
The first trucking company I ever drove for, they have a tanker division and they have a flatbed or a dry van. Now they have a flatbed division, but they had a tanker division and a dry van. And this guy was there. He was going to be a tanker driver. And when you go in for after your day on the road, the last person in the driver's seat has to back into a parking spot. So they have 14-foot wide parking spots. Now we all know that a parking spot for a truck isn't 14 feet wide. These are extra wide. And they had half a football field of room in front. And they said to this guy, "Put it in there." We were all out standing under the canopy waiting for because he was the last one to park. 45 minutes later, he could not get it in the hole because of the slosh kept throwing him off. And he stalled the truck 2 or 3 times going up the on-ramp. And so when we got back to the classroom, they looked at him and said, "You're not driving a tanker. We're moving you to our van division."
I know when I drove tank, hauled a lot of the waste, residual waste product. I remember one spot I was in southern Michigan, happened to be Earth Day, and there was a chemical facility that sprung a gigantic leaked all kinds of stuff all over the place. And they sent us in to go get it. And I had like a 5,000 gallon tank. It was like a paper towel tube on wheels with the exterior ribs and everything, no baffles. And they loaded us right up. And this one old hand taught me this trick of going across the scales in Michigan. They were platforms in the ground, and they couldn't weigh more than just the duals at any one time. They couldn't get the whole truck on the platform. So he told me, since we're heavy, but we're not too heavy, go rolling across on the platform, getting onto it and hitting the throttle just a little bit to move that wave to the back, and then let off the throttle and let the wave come forward
back to the front
while the scale's in between the drive axle and the trailer dual. So the weight then transferred, hit the clutch and put it in, put the clutch in and let that wave push you across the scale the rest of the way, and then get up and go. So we came across that scale light every time. Just some of the fun little tricks that we used to do with that stuff back in the day. A lot of fun.
I am absolutely appalled, Crackerbox. I'm gonna have to completely change my opinion of you now.
Oh yeah.
So with tanker work, hazmat work, and the e-logs, does it take a long time to unload? I've never done the kind of hazmat work that you're doing. How do you wind up at shippers? Do you get into problems with the e-log and the unloading and the wait times, et cetera? Anything specific to tanker work that's not in like dry van or flatbeds?
Hey, Crackerbox.
Yeah. What's up, Toby?
Did you get your card yet?
I did. I got it right here. I opened it up this morning.
I got mine. Is yours the cool metal one?
No, I got the second card. I got the plastic card. Did you get the metal card?
Oh yeah, I got the metal one. You beat a mugger up with this thing, man.
Tell folks about this card. What is OTR Clutch?
Well, OTR Clutch is a banking solution by OTR Solutions. It's designed for truckers and the trucking industry. It's for truckers individually and for small fleets and businesses. And it's backed by Thread Bank. So it's FDIC insured. They've got the free overdraft. They have, they also have the automatic savings account. I mentioned that they're FDIC insured. Download the app, or you can go to the website, otrclutch.com.
I agree. I was really impressed by a lot of the features, but the thing that really impressed me the most, having been an owner-operator way back in the day, their factoring services.
And the other thing about that's cool is it's free for owner-operators.
Yeah. I'm sitting here while we're talking. I'm looking at the OTR Clutch page, and they have end-to-end encryption on their app. You get unlimited cash back, no fees, no minimum balance. There's no credit check either. Yeah. I'm really happy that our company, the 6 Million Mile Productions, has decided to go with OTR Solutions and the OTR Clutch account. I think it's going to work well for us for everything that we're doing.
Yep, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I think they're going to do right by drivers. I think.
And we'll get back here to the show in just a moment and just let everybody know OTR Solutions has brought us OTR Clutch. Let's show everybody the hand. There we are. OTR Clutch, made for drivers.
Do I get into problem with e-logs? I do, yes. Oh, that it's necessarily anything to do with the appointment or the delivery or anything. I just I'm trying to use it as efficient as it lets you. And what I think I accomplish and what it is letting me has been contradictory, to say the least. So that's also, I went from the standard to the automatic. I was, like you were mentioning, for the salt, you are always hours of service exempt, and agriculture service exempt as long as you're in the 120, 150 air miles. So this was a new animal also, and I like it just to be the way I want it to be. And company's like, yeah, you're really going to have to probably fix that. So I've just been 10 hours. Just do your 10 hours, take it as it is. It's not great. It's what they allow. So why am I trying to do something, so much more above and beyond when the basics is good? Just stay with the basics for right now, build the fundamentals, and then I can branch out from there maybe.
Keep it simple.
Yes, kiss, right? Keep it simple,
Keep it simple.
stupid.
I wasn't gonna say that to with a lady
That's
on the call.
fine. But usually you're only at like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours we get allotted, and you almost always are gate to gate well before that. So back on the road and try to get, like right now, I'm trying to finish getting to the receiver, switch trailers. This is a drop and hook, so nobody, it's even better. You don't even touch a chemical and you're in and out and you really don't even talk to anybody. Somebody signs a piece of paper, whether they're the guard shack. But I think it's been really easy because the shipper, the receiver, the company, all the drivers, we just know what is expected of us, right? So if everybody goes in there, their personnel, hey, how's it going? Sign your work, go and hook up as you need to, or in this case, just find the trailers that you're switching. It really doesn't have to be this in-depth mammoth problem. Everything can go pretty smoothly, and most of the time, knock on wood, right? It really has. It really has been pretty easy to pick up for the most part.
Cool. Did I imagine the training process for the company had to be pretty extensive, but when you get out of the training program and actually get out into practical application for doing those kind of deliveries, was there any kind of big disconnect in between what you were taught and what you're actually doing? And second half of that question is, was there other drivers helping you out, kind of showing you what's going on until you got the hang of it? How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, that's really good questions. And I've seen that plenty of times. You go in, they show you how to cook fries, and then you try to cook fries on your own and they're burnt, right? Not personal experience there. But no, this one was great, actually. It was just there, as I kind of am going back to, they really have it on lockdown. This is your steps. This is what's happening. That's what was showed in the videos, that the trainer is a driver. So that makes a big difference, I think. Going from school, the truck driving school, to the agriculture, you just threw everything out the window. It was really just this new, different animal. You kind of had to learn on the fly. But the hazardous material it's very specific, and we're very careful with it, and we know just what's expected. Any driver at any time of the day, you have a problem, you can call just about anyone and they will walk you through it. There's a level of camaraderie here that it was wonderful. It was really unique going to it. So
that's actually cool. That's actually cool because, like, one of our things is, the camaraderie and the brotherhood that is this industry, but knowing that you drive for a company, and I imagine, and you verified that it's much more stringent and controlled because of what you haul. So I would imagine there has to be a little bit more of a close-knit society, so to speak, especially within the company. So it's glad to hear that. Good to hear that, because it's something we don't see a lot out here anymore. So just knowing that, and as a person who doesn't personally know you, I'll bet that does help you feel safer too. Just in general, as a driver and as a hazmat driver with tanker, I'll bet that does help you feel a little bit more relaxed and confident about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it does. It really adds to your level of you're going to be specific about it. You're going to try and make sure every day, that white Volvo that I didn't send to the morgue and was able to send home, out here being a steward of the road and then adding another element to it. So yeah, we do the best we can for sure. Now that there's new drivers coming in and I'm trying to start to get a little bit more acclimated to everything, they can call me as well. I'm like, here's my number. You holler. Now, I'm not great with directions if we want to go down that little road. Like, I don't know how some of you drivers, and probably both of you guys, because it seems like everybody I meet is just spot on. And a guy that I remember from a couple of companies ago, he could tell you where he was on January 6th of 1993 at 7 a.m. in the morning and turn at the garden gnome with the blue pants. And I'm like,
I've gotten directions like that, and I know Crackerbox has. I've gotten directions like that. Those stink.
Yeah.
I got directions in Pennsylvania once. Get off the exit, turn left, go, and I quote, a ways. Look for small brown building. The aways turned out to be 36 miles.
That's a long
And
way.
the building turned out to be a double barn. It wasn't very small.
The worst set of directions I ever got in pre-GPS, pre-cell phone days. No Qualcomm in the truck, nothing like that. Just running on good old Rand McNally Road Atlas. My dispatcher wrote out directions to get to a rail yard in Chicago.
Oh,
And right there.
I know where that rail yard is.
Oh man. So I'm going down the Dan Ryan, and I'm looking at this paper with the my directions on it, and there's my exit. I get off the exit, off the ramp, and it said get down to the bottom of the ramp and turn right. And I got down to the bottom of the ramp and started to make a right turn, and I'm looking at an 11-foot high bridge. And and I've got the drive van. I'm looking at I'm committed to this turn. I'm halfway through the intersection. I can't back up. I can't go forward. So I ended up looking around, and there was a little low median. I just waited for a break in traffic and just made this gigantic looping U-turn in the middle of the road and right back through that intersection. By the time I got turned, the light was already red in my direction, and I'm already in the middle of that intersection. A carload of Chicago cops looking at me, just going, "Yeah, you got it," and just got back on the expressway. Man, that was absolutely terrible. And so now I'm up on the Dan Ryan in Chicago, not knowing where to go because obviously the directions were wrong. So now what? So I had to get out of Chicago, find a phone, and call and get redirections. Man, that's one thing. One of the things I do not miss about old school trucking was the lack. And in Chicago, nobody's going to tell you anything on the CB. You're not going to get a friendly hand to tell you anything on the radio, not a bit.
Same rail yard. The very first student I ever had was a tourist. She loved to just look at the scenery. And the instructions on the Qualcomm said, get off this exit, second street, first turn left, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'd been to this rail yard before, and I knew it wasn't the first left, it was the second left, because on the first left, there's an 11-foot bridge.
Well, there we go. Now
so
I know.
She's driving. So, and I always had this thing about with my students, tell me what that sign said. She'd always go, I don't know. I missed it. She missed that 11-foot bridge sign. She started going, and she finally looked up and saw that 11-foot clearance and stopped dead in the middle of that intersection. We had to call the police. They had to shut the road down. She had to do a 3-point K turn to get turned around and get out of there. And I looked at her and I said, you ever going to miss a sign again? She said, no, you did that on purpose, didn't you? I said, yes, I did. And she, by the way, she never missed a sign again after that.
Nice.
They're our best friend, man.
Yeah. With hazmats, I imagine, boy, what a blessing having a Qualcomm and all that would be, because you don't want to wind up in a situation like that when you've got some really nasty stuff. But like, I remember truck stops, there used to be a safe area. If you had a hazmat load, they thought it was a really good idea to park all of the explosives and nasty things in one special section of the truck stop. So if one blows, they all blow. It's,
so there's really big hole.
Yeah. It's the same logic that tells you, in the airport, no, that container of liquid is too big. You should throw it into this other container full of potentially explosive things. That same kind of thinking. What's with the level of things that you're hauling, Rue, Are there any special procedures that you have to do in truck stops? But you said, you get to stay at the terminal or the receivers. Is that because of the parking? Do you ever have to contend with anything like that?
I don't think that is the reason behind it. It's just more logistical that, I mean, if you're already there and they need you and have ability to take it in the tank or something of that nature. I've seen it in the truck stops that they do just always seem whoever has a tanker wants to group together. And I've heard that maybe this isn't great, but the likelihood of anything actually happening is so slim. I say that, and then we all watch the news on the I-95 and that bridge blowing up, but it's just so uncommon, unless it's the rails too, clearly lately. I think you're okay. I really do. I think, we do just have this hyper vigilance, and when it does happen, it does kind of stick in your mind. So we always think that the worst is going to happen, but that million times that you delivered, it's been okay. So I don't know.
But just me personally, I like the idea that they're so hyper vigilant about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to haul hazmat, and I remember one time I had a leak, and I was hauling a Conway load, and they actually made me find another Conway terminal, and turns out it was white paint that was leaking. But I mean,
oh, that was you.
Could,
I've seen that on the road.
Right. They make lines out of it now. But and that was just something small, but they had to go through a whole lot of stuff. So knowing that, see, I don't know a lot about the tanker divisions out here. I've never driven one. You guys have me over a barrel. You have an advantage over me there. Now, if you want dry van, I can tell you all kinds of stuff about that. But so knowing that they're that cautious and that preventative, I guess is the word, to try to prevent stuff and to try to stay on top of stuff, kind of makes me feel good to know that, because I've never really had a chance to talk to tanker drivers. And I didn't even know you used to haul one. Crackerbox.
I can't think of too many things that I haven't managed to hook up to in over that many years. Tankers were fun. I enjoyed it, but the anhydrous ammonia, that really just turned me off from hazmat. That was
15
just
seconds to dead.
Yeah, that was just
I cannot imagine.
Terrifying, man.
I cannot imagine.
No.
Did you smoke at the time? Just out of curiosity, did you smoke maybe at the time, or
not in the truck? And well, anhydrous won't burn. Anhydrous, NH3, nitrogen and hydrogen together, but they are inert in that form, and it was used as farm fertilizer. So the farmers would come and take it specifically for corn. You put it into the ground, the nitrogen stays, the hydrogen separates in the ground and just bleeds off into the atmosphere harmlessly. But together, it won't blow up. You could roll that thing over and it's not going to blow up, but it's going to leak out. And I could tell you some stories about some clouds that got made. Not my doing. Had a guy, I was pumping off anhydrous at full pressure, had the pump was just cranking. And this guy had the brilliant idea to change the routing of the plumbing while I was pumping off at full pressure. And which is fine, but come tell me so I can turn the pump off. And this guy thought that he could do it fast enough to that I wouldn't notice the difference. And what I noticed was my main hose jumping 5 feet off the ground because all of a sudden I'm pumping full pressure against a closed valve, blew the seal out on the bottom of the trailer, just blew this cloud of ammonia out while I'm standing there. And when you haul ammonia, you always know which way the wind's blowing, because you need to know which way to run. If it leaks,
the opposite way.
Yeah, if something leaks, you're going to run into the wind as fast as you can go. And that belly seal, that belly valve blew the front seal out. And so I ran up to the cab of the truck because fortunately, so that guy was I ran up to the front of the truck and killed the ignition. I didn't bother doing anything else. I just opened the door and turned the whole truck off, which caused all kinds of other problems, and found the guy. And he's like all apologetic because he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I could turn these valves fast enough." Man, no, that guy, terminal manager, he lost his job that afternoon. He got fired right there on the spot, on the spot. But yeah, so things were a little looser. This was 87-ish, 88 when that happened. Things were a little looser. 9/11 hadn't happened. There weren't so many tight adherence to restrictions of where you go and how you handle things. It was still kind of the Wild West, and it's an interesting, Rue, to hear the stories about being a hazmat driver now, that, it was always a tighter situation, more restricted, but it really sounds like whoever you're driving for has really got their act together. And that's good to see. That's really good to hear. So tell me a little bit more, Rue, about being a woman on the road and dealing with the men drivers. Do you have a harder time with the old time guys, the old school drivers, or what kind of issues have you run into, and how have you dealt with that?
I think if I had to pinpoint a couple, yes, I would say it was maybe twice in my career, a little bit older. When I was young, new at it, and you're gonna get, what did I use the term, crotchety, some crusty. That's not what used to happen. As you mentioned, you didn't see it routinely. And now if I'm, counting trucks, I'll see 7 or 8 or 10 women, as opposed to maybe one in a week. And he was
Do you run with your CV on?
Yeah,
Do
I
you
have
run with your CV? Well, I was just curious because back in the old days, like, you could, a woman be in a truck stop and ask what time it was, when we had to know those things because, we used to use coloring books. I've heard female drivers get on the radio and just ask what time it was. And drivers in the truck stop for 4 states jump all over her on the radio. I mean, he's got a valid point. How is it for a woman driver out here now compared to, well, you can't compare it to 10 or 15 years ago like we can, but compared to when you first started driving, how is it?
Yeah, I think it's the women maybe has not been as much of a topic, I'd say, as like just these new age door swingers. It's just it's kind of deteriorated. Just why are you wearing flip-flops and sweatpants and things of that nature? So seeing a female that's dressed, I try to have my button up and usually have my knife on me just because I'm so used to it. And I walk into the place like I own it, you're probably not going to bother me too much. And if we're sitting down for a lunch, I'll be very cordial to anyone that just wants to talk and talk truck. I'm all about it. One day I bought the lunch. The guy was talking to me and I'm like, well, I thought people did that. And like 3 weeks later, the waitress thought it was the coolest thing on the planet. And I said, don't we do that? I thought this was a thing. And as you mentioned, the camaraderie, and I don't know, I guess I'm just used to it. I think I've always kind of had a little bit of a man's world, and it just doesn't resonate with me too much anymore. I know that I need to do my job. I'll wave at you. Like you said, get on the CV. Hey, mile marker 280. You got Smokey in the middle, right? And we all try to work together. And that's why it kind of makes me sad, just in the 7 years I've had my CDL and now being over the road. It's like, do you want to be in this profession? Don't you have diesel in your blood? And all anybody wants is a paycheck, and there shouldn't be 6 or 7 of you potentially in one truck, and you're driving 24/7. That brings in the whole new problem of why is freight so cheap now, and it's just kind of a snowball situation. But I guess I do have to be mindful that I am a petite woman in a man's world, so to speak. But
It is. It's a male dominated industry, and it has been for 100 years. I mean, and I used to train females because I was one of the only guys that they never had a problem with harassment or sexual harassment cases. Man, I know a guy, I had a female student that had gone to training for a company previously and then came to the company I drove for, and I trained her. Her trainer for the previous company tried to sell her in El Paso.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm not joking. It's the stuff that happens out here. Well, and maybe not so much anymore, thankfully. It used to be rough, and this is a male-dominated industry, and there were thoughts as to what really occurred or what's supposed to, or the way things were supposed to go. And I don't know how to explain it without being coarse, and I don't want to do that. But it was, being a woman out here was, to getting started, was pretty ugly. And now it's gotten better, and Rue's out here 7 years, she says. And so, I mean, obviously there's improvement, and that's a good thing. But for a male-dominated industry, for a female to be out here and dominating the way she is, hats off to her, for sure.
Yeah, nice job. Nice job.
Well, I mean, there has been incidences, but what am I going to do? Run to HR every single time? I mean, I'm not these snowflake kind of new age people. I got into this kind of knowing what I was into. I got a fairly thick skin. Not to say I'm going to let everything slide. And certainly that situation, you're going to try to traffic and your daughters like you're talking. Now we have a problem, and I would make sure everyone in the truck stop knew about it for sure.
Some of the stuff, and I know, it's not every driver. I know it's not every trainer. But that old saying, one bad apple ruins the barrel. And it gives, everybody in that company or that whatever, there's a stigma that goes with it. And you don't want that stink on you.
To change the topic here and get a little bit lighter, every driver has their favorite truck story to tell, and they all start with, this one time, blah, 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 or you're not going to believe this driver. But so, Rue, tell us a truck story. Tell us your favorite truck story.
I don't know if it's a favorite, but it just kind of brings everything into perspective. And it's pretty recent. So I think that is why it's sticking out to me. And it's with this company and been there to the customer. They're really great as usual. Most of them are, but I get all hooked up and ready to just kind of chill like we usually do. And he said, no, you got to specifically stay with him, the operator, and come back here and make sure that there's a couple of sets of eyes on it. I'm like, oh, what happened? And he proceeded to tell me the story of maybe a 65-year-old that had been there a few times, had everything hooked up, got it started, and got in his truck, which some places let you do that, some don't. It just depends how their policies are. I generally stay out and make an effort to stay with the product. But the operator said it was pretty well done. The time frame, generally right in that hour and a half, 2 hour range. And the truck driver wasn't getting out. He went to find him. And sure enough, he'd passed away at the wheel.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
That just like hurt my heart some, and they changed their whole, obviously, rest in peace, driver. Your shift's over and we'll take it from here, which I always say anytime that you cross that, because it really, this is a lifestyle, but it's not, the end all. It's not the end all. It's not what I want to, check out doing, I hope. But if you do,
no.
I mean, if you do, I also know that I loved it. It really does matter. It keeps the backbone of America moving. So I don't know, that one. Not, I know you wanted to make it light and morbid. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I'm over here. I was expected, get me pumped up to finish this next 250 miles, and now I'm over here going, I'm all sad. I'm gonna have to go buy some roses, and
that's a good story. That's
but it happens more often than we think about it.
Yeah.
That's that's what makes it so poignant for me, is it does happen. I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we're probably getting about towards the end of things here. I've neglected to turn on my timer, so I have absolutely no idea how long we've been talking, and that's just fine.
A little over an hour.
Oh, cool. Cool. Thank you. Rue, do you have anything else that you want to add to this, or anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
I think, I reach out to anyone, just fueling as we're talking, anytime I do happen to go in, really even in my home downtime, I encourage people to get their CDL. I think it's a great profession. We bitch. I'll bitch all day about these door swingers and what's going on. It's just, it's done. It's going to provide for your family. It's tough being away from them, but you also know that at the end of the day, there's a tangible product. I can measure the gallons, I can measure the miles. And for some reason in my, workaholic type lifestyle, that matters to me.
Okay. I have one for you. What advice would you give to a female getting ready to come out here and join this industry? Doesn't matter whether it's tanker, dry van, doesn't matter. What advice would you give to a female that's interested in joining our brotherhood, or in your case, sisterhood?
Yeah. Yep. I really do. And I mean it wholeheartedly. I'm like, do it. You got to be able to do it. If you think that you want to, and you're scared of, I'm terrible with directions. Isn't that funny? I'm a driver and I'm not good with directions unless I sit down at the map. If there wasn't power steering, I probably would have a problem, but the technology is advancing and you really just got to do it. It might not work out. It doesn't work out for everyone. Restaurants fail at a 50% rate. Probably truck driving might be more, but try it. You've gotta have it in your heart, and like we said, diesel in your blood, and really want to do it. Don't just come out here thinking, it's just going to be YouTube videos kind of stuff, and you're going to be famous on TikTok from backing up. But we're all out here trying to do our best, and I think it is worth a shot. I think it's worth a shot. So give it a shot.
Well, there goes that backing video I was going to do tonight.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, Rue, thank you so much for being on our show. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down and yak with us for a little while. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much.
So, Crackerbox, I love that episode. It was a really good episode. What really struck me is the fact that she hasn't been driving but about 6 or 7 years, but she's got diesel in her veins, man. She's old. She got the heart of an old school driver, and I love that. Yeah, me too. I was really impressed with what she had, that line she said about having diesel in her veins. And what the other thing that really impressed me about her was that she was in agricultural trucking, and as we pointed out during the episode, that is some hard work, man. That is some long hours and some tough conditions, and frequently some raggedy equipment. So, hats off to you, Rue. I would, but my headphones are kind of holding it on. Yeah, nice job, Rue. Thank you very, very much for being on the show. We appreciate it. We really do. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. And thank you to everybody that watched the episode. We're really having a good time doing this, and I'm glad that y'all are watching. And I am one of your co-hosts, Crackerbox Jimmy.
And I am your other co-host, Trucker Toby. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever we put up a new episode. And hey, give us a thumbs up. And by the way, me and Crackerbox Jimmy are 1010 on the side.
Bone shaker, rattle my head. You got a Jake that's not enough to wake the dead.